Welcome to One-on-One. A community is only as good as the people in it, which is exactly why we have been going around town looking for interesting people. People who make our community as great as it is. We were able to find a very interesting guest today. My name is Dacquino. Our guest today is historian Ron Taylor. Ron, it is an honor to have you here. I've worked with you a number of times. I love what you do. Share some of your experiences. Talk to us. I know you have a very strong belief about history, what history really is, and what we need to do to maintain our past.
Well, thank you, Vinny.
Yeah, my pleasure. Who are you, Ron? What are you doing?
Oh, currently I'm, and have been for my 8th year, president of the Historical Society in Patterson. I'm also a member of the local planning board. And the two roles give me an interesting perspective on history.
Yes, I'm sure they do.
Trying to preserve history and trying to balance it with public interests, private interests, and otherwise.
Yeah, my fear is that history, in many ways, as we move forward, it loses some respect. People forget that we need yesterday to move forward to tomorrow. And I know that you work very hard at giving history the respect it deserves.
Well, history, like many organizations, is challenged. It's challenged by finances. It's challenged by lack of volunteers. But there's some responsibility in the history community for that. The history has become stale and static, even moribund in some areas. There are exceptions out there, like the Putnam History Museum over in Cold Spring. Very lively place, doing a lot of different things. Very interesting place. But a lot of the local organizations are doing very little or struggling to do things. Local house museums are having difficulty putting a new roof on their houses. And some of that's because of the changing nature of the culture. People don't want to stand in lines going by exhibits. They want to climb the mountain. They want to be engaged in the activity. They want to reenact a battle. Depends on what people are doing as to what they want to do. But they want to be involved in a different way than historians have allowed them to be in the past. And one of the things I've been concerned about in my tenure as president of the Historical Society is how do we move forward from where we are? Yeah. What can we do, given the resources we have, to move forward? We can't dream the impossible dream now. We have to build toward that.
Right, and I know that some of the incentives to move forward are funded, some of them are not. So that some of these historical societies they have to do what they can do within their own means.
Yes.
And in many ways, be creative. I know that you have a wonderful reach out to the community. I've been to some of your programs at the library where you help people understand what history is. And you're right. We've become a different culture. And museums are wonderful in that they preserve the past, but people want to be interactive and they want to be out there and they want to see the things. I'm always concerned that sometimes we bulldoze the past to make a parking lot for the future.
Well, there's certainly that, and that's one of my roles on the planning board is to try to integrate the past with the future. But we need to build a base. Historians need to build a base from which they can then approach the community to say, this is why history is important. We can't sell history. We've got to demonstrated
attractive,
in
yeah.
such a way that people know that history is important.
Yep.
One of the ways we can do that, there are 4 main areas that I as I do research and as I've done research, that stand out to me as things that can be done now. Now, one of them is getting the archives that we have, the collections we have, the pictures and the documents, getting them online so they're accessible to people in general and to researchers particularly. There's a site that does that. We've just started putting pictures up. The Putnam County Historian's Office is financing the site, a portion of the site. They're financing. It's a site where a bunch of organizations come together and they host this information.
They've been wonderful for me and my research when I was doing hauntings and the Sybil Luddington book. I mean, they make things accessible.
Yes, but they're also trying to make them more accessible.
Yeah.
A lot of these places, they have documents, but you've got to go there, and there are limited hours. But if you put them online, and this online place is called HRVH, it's Hudson River Valley Heritage. HRVH.org.
Okay, simple.
And if you go there, look for the Putnam County History Collections. Putnam County, New York History Collections. And
many of the things, I used to have to travel back and forth to Brewster to try to get that. And now, you're right, there's things online. There's also, it's amazing how much is online that really is primary source. I mean, some amazing things. But I know that one of the things that concerns you is that there's also a whole lot of things online that are not 100% reliable. We have to make sure that we go to sites like this, things that we can count on as being reliable sources.
Yeah, that's important. It's difficult. That's a difficult process. It's difficult getting these collections online. Yeah. They have to be scanned. They've got to be indexed. You've got to provide a description for them of some kind so that people can understand what they are.
What they are, yeah.
And that's just individual pieces of data in a sense. It's a picture with some description. And how do you turn that into history then? You can't take a single picture and create history out of it.
Right.
So you need to go beyond that. And this site is individual pictures. If you've got a long story, a long book, they can mount it. But it's difficult. It doesn't fit in the same way. We have a website. The Historical Society has a website, but we haven't had the time to mount those longer histories there. We need a webmaster. That's where volunteers can come into this process. Somebody to coordinate and uploads this stuff. We've got it scanned out. We need to put there. But beyond that, you've got to go to contextualizing this information. You need to map it in some way.
Right.
Either put it on a traditional map or a graph sometimes. It's quantitative data that you can graph so people can see it. To do that mapping, and again, it needs to be digitalized. You've got all these old maps, but you can't take an old map from 1754, copy the image, and drop it on a modern day survey. It won't work. The surveyors' techniques were different then. Their knowledge of the terrain was different. What they were dealing with was different.
And
the roads are different, and it's difficult to do that. We need a group of people who are mapping this information, taking the old maps, adjusting them, and putting them online. There are 2 sites that have a potential to this. One is a state site. It's the New York State Historic Preservation Office. They have a site called CRIS, Cultural Resource Inventory System. And go look at it. If you're interested in your local community, go to this site and look at what they have posted about your local community. This is the site that developers are sent to as part of the review process to see what is historic in an area. This is a real thing, and they're putting a lot of time and money into it. It's a very nice site. They've done a lot of things, but they need resources. If you go to look at Patterson in the 1980s did a survey of historic houses. They have those surveys on their site, but they can't map them because there were no addresses in the 1980s. 911 hadn't come up yet. So they've got these individual documents they cannot put on a map.
Got these
because
RD3s.
Yes. So somebody needs to supply addresses. This is something, again, where volunteers could help. This would be a simple thing.
You know, this is the second time you brought up volunteers. To volunteer for a historical society, walk in the door and say, I'd like to help. I mean,
yes, or you pick up the phone. Yes, we're always looking for help. And there are all kinds of things that can be done. There are people who are, every Tuesday from 1 to 7, we have people who come to our office and they scan.
Every Tuesday, 1 to 7.
They scan and digitize, and it's amazing how much you can get done.
Do you
in a year of 4 or 5 hours every week, we can get a lot done. But we also have people who are restoring an old cemetery. Or working on a schoolhouse. Other organizations have other projects they're working on.
There's a lot of different projects. Whatever your interest, you could find something to fill that interest.
Yes. If you want to do research.
High school? Can a high school kid help?
Oh, we'd love to have some
tech-savvy
high school
kids. High school students. Get involved in your local history. Join the Historical Society.
Do some of this mapping for us.
And it's not only Patterson. There's Carmel,
it's the whole county, and beyond the county. It all ties in. We need field explorers out there finding these old foundations, finding the houses that are still there, but people don't know how old they are, some of them. Some of these houses we have go back to the 1720s and the 1740s.
And I know that there's been some wonderful work done by the cemetery group who have gone out there and taken these cemeteries that are literally falling apart. You're talking 200 years old, you know, and they're falling apart, and I've seen them put them together, even repair some of the stones. That's a lot of hard work, but it needs to be preserved.
Yes, it does. And so the other site for mapping, it's a group, it's ESRI, and they provide mapping software for digital mapping. I would love to put a group together of people who are using that software, learning to use it, and creating these maps. Any age, doesn't matter. So that's the second area, is mapping. The third area is genealogy. And this is where we really come together, and what you'd said before. There's a lot of genealogical research out there, but there are certain sites, the large popular sites, where people submit the genealogy to the site and the sites post it. But there's no policing, there's no source
so
editing of what comes up there.
Accurate.
You don't know if it's accurate or not. And it's redundant, which is the other thing. It's a waste of space on these sites. We need a local, regional genealogy group that is taking their information and posting it so we can share these. Because what happens, you've got one family, they marry another family, and you end up with this, everybody's related to everybody else in the past.
I told you when I first got involved with Sybil Luddington.
Yes.
What an education. Because what I discovered was that most of the information they had about her life was incorrect. Mother of 6 children? No. Married Henry Ogden? No. Who was a lawyer in Catskill? No. Took me 3.5 years to sort through all of this information. And some of it was repeated over and over and over again incorrectly.
Right.
So, you know, I had to determine, you know, who do I believe? And there was so much. And as you say, in those days, now I did that book all the way back in 2000. I had to go door to door. And I actually traveled to Washington to try to get all these records and get them together and sort through.
And you still do.
And I still do.
Because they're not online yet, some of those records.
No, they're not. And it's, but that brings me also to these young kids who are, I mean, we didn't grow up with technology the way some of these kids are growing up. And they can do wonderful things.
Yes.
So I'm urging some of these young students who are so great with computers, please bring your skills to the Historic Society and show us what you can do.
Yeah. Or to the county historian. Come to the county historian. We all need it. The fourth area, well, so let me finish the genealogy. We need a local family tree is what we need, a site where we can have a local family tree. something like Wikipedia maybe,
Yeah.
where you're required to show your sources. And there's somebody monitoring that to see that nothing gets posted. The Putnampedia, yeah. The fourth area is what we would, in the business, call material culture. The big things, not the photographs or the little documents, the baskets, the hats, the tractors. We had somebody offer us 4 tractors recently. What do you do with these things?
I know.
The ruins out in the woods. That's material history. Or the old house that somebody's still living in that they don't realize is 300 years old.
Yeah.
Again, some of this can be online collections, pictures that link to these things, but also field guides. So people can take tours of these things. You can see them when they go for a hike in the woods, when they're climbing that mountain, they can stop off and see the foundry or what's left of the foundry on the side of the mountain, or the mine tillings, and so on. So there are those 4 areas, all that can be combined with online platforms.
Right.
For this material, and software that's appropriate to storing and disseminating this material.
And you have actual workshops that you do to bring people in to make them aware of all of the things that are already available, and things that could be available, and ways that they could contribute to preserving our past.
Yes, that's what we do with volunteers. That's our role, and we are not only preserving the history, but we're trying to expand the number of people who are preserving history.
And I know the state offers courses like in how to handle materials and to try to preserve them. I know in the past, when I was doing Sybil, some of the things, these wonderful pieces of documentation were falling apart, just disintegrating. So it is a matter of trying to be careful about what we do, but you can learn, and I know you are offering opportunities to learn. So how do they find out about that? You have your website we gives information?
Yes, we have a calendar on our website. It needs to be updated, but county historian. There is a county information site, a history site online where individual organizations post what's coming up, and it's distributed to the members of that. People can sign up for that.
Right, the county historian's office is open to the public.
Yes, it is.
They're welcome to come in there.
Yes.
I mean, I've been in there. We've had people from all over, in and out, looking through, and there's some wonderful information. Filing cabinets filled with information.
But you need to realize that they're trying to do a job too. You can't just go in and, my feeling is, you can't just go in researching your individual family and somehow expect all this help without giving something back in return. Because they need resources too. They're challenged.
Community effort.
Yes, community
which is exactly
effort.
why we're here.
Yes.
I'm going to try to get our new historian here, so that
she's a wonderful person.
She is a wonderful person, and Sarah can talk to the people and let them know what's available and what she'd like to see happen.
Yes.
There are so many people out there. We mentioned before that Patterson has a historical society, but so does Carmel, and so does Kent, and so does Buck Valley, and they have, I remember being amazed going to Putt Valley. There was a cemetery with no names on the stones. And I said, oh my God, this is lost forever. No, it wasn't lost forever. It was on a little piece of paper in a box there, and I was able to find George Denny, when I was doing Hauntings of the Hudson River, George Denny's sister's grave.
Right.
We thought was lost forever.
Right.
But it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of knowing where things are.
Well, it's also a matter of helping get those things online. I keep coming back to this. We need that information out there to create history, to create new history, and not keep repeating the old stories. We need new data. And that data is out there. It's surprising how much, as you said, how much data is really out there if you dig for it.
When I did Sybil, I had to take from maybe 20, 30 different sources in order to get her one story.
Yes.
I was able to create cradle to grave.
Yes.
Cradle to grave is very difficult
Yes.
on a person's life,
Right.
especially to get it all straight because we're talking 1700s.
Yes.
You know,
But-
and 1800s, and some of those things are lost.
Yes.
But because of technology, look, recently, we thought that the first mention of Sybil's Ride was 1907. They found a book
Right.
in New York City,
Right.
the history of New York City. Who would think
Yeah.
that Sybil's story
Right.
would be in there? 1880.
Right.
So now we
You
brought
moved it
her
back.
history
Yeah.
a little closer to her life. She died in 1838.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
But we were talking about this the other day, and I pointed out something to you that you didn't know about Sybil, because her mother's family were actually in what is now Patterson. It was
Right.
then Fredericksburg. They were here first. So there's information there that we can share as the
Yeah.
Patterson Historical Society with the Kent Historical Society, where she lived. And again, this is a reason for collaboration,
You're right.
for cooperation on this information. And
People
together we
yep.
could produce
People assume
research.
that research is research, but they don't realize, for example, here's a wonderful example. Reed Library in Carmel, they have a little cardboard box in a little glass case in that library. Poems written about Sybil,
Right.
facts, information,
Yeah.
letters,
Yes.
personal letters. Up in Peekskill, I went Peekskill Library, they had a handwritten letter from one of the Luddingtons. Every place doesn't have the same information.
Right. And
And if
need-
you, yeah,
gotta
if
bring
we
it
can
together.
digitalize it, yeah,
Exactly.
get it all together and
Yes.
bring it together.
Right.
We wouldn't have to go through what I went through. Take 3 years to try to dig it out of all these separate little places.
And then you can go, you don't have to repeat it then. The
Right.
problem historians have faced in the past is one person writes a book about something, they go down to the New York Historical Society, they go through the archives, they take notes on the archives, they come back and they write their book.
Yep.
And then another historian in 30 years does the same thing. They're repeating research when they should be advancing research. And we can do this. These pieces can go together, and we can take the data, produce talks, make publications, make video programs, make exhibits that are alive and current and have new information in it.
Ron, we're down to about the last 5 minutes of the show. What do we want to say to the public out there to try to help them understand your goals for history?
Well, my immediate goals are what I just mapped out. That there are these things we can do. They take very little in terms of monetary resources. It requires people. It requires volunteers.
the
There's no money out there to hire
community
people
help.
to do this.
Right.
We need to coordinate this. The different societies need to cooperate. They need to think about consolidating some services, specializing in certain areas. Some societies are great at doing tours. We're very good at doing talks, as you'd said.
Yep.
The historian's office is moving these archives forward, digitizing archives and bringing them together. We all need to sit down and work on a plan to the next step. What is the next step? And that's what I came to talk about today. Is these are the next steps I could see. We need a group of people doing mapping. We need a group of people doing local genealogy and collecting it together. We need people posting more information to the archives or bringing information in that we can scan and then post on HRVH.
I talk a number of times to our listeners who say to me, "Oh, I love when you do the shows on history." And I say, "What have you done for history? Are you a member of any of these?" And they go, "Well, no, but I am very interested in history." And I say to them, "We need you."
Yes, we need you.
There's so many people out there in this community, and some of them really honestly do believe in preserving history. But they need to help, because it can't all be, I know you, are just tireless in the work that you do, and you're always working to try to put it all together. So is the Carmel Historical Society, Kent, constantly working, Cold Spring. So many people are working, but it's not enough. We need more. So our plea to you today is to take your part. This show is all about people who serve a wonderful community. It's why we are wonderful. We need more people like Ron, like you. Well, Ron, I cannot thank you enough. You were heard. I hope people out there come running to your society saying, hey, I saw you on the show. I want to help. I want to do whatever I can do to make history work.
Yes, we need you.
Yes, we need you. And we thank you for being a part of this show, for being part of our community. We're looking for people to come on this show. If you have an interesting story, bring it here. We want to hear it. We want to meet you. Thank you for being here today.